Hey, so it turns out that Tesla is not the only one that's opening up their charging network. Rivian is also opening up their Rivian Adventure Network to all EVs. Kind of think they pretty much had to at this point. South Carolina is getting a $2 billion investment from Volkswagen to build the new Scout EV. And I have to say, I cannot wait for the new electric Scout. That should be pretty cool. And, those Chinese EV makers, we've talked about this before, they're knocking on that North American market door. They're looking for a way in, and they're going to get their way. So, it's Monday, February 26th, 2024. Let's get to it. So, it appears that Rivian is going to follow Tesla and open their Rivian Adventure Network charging network to non-Rivians, which is super cool. Obviously, this news is welcome, but it obviously isn't going to be the earthquake that Tesla opening their supercharger network is, because, Tesla's network is so just ginormous. Some like 15,000 chargers are going to open up in the U.S. or North America to non-Tesla drivers. So that's a massive thing. Rivian's network is like 400 chargers, I think, like 67 sites, but it doesn't matter. It's still welcome news because we need more quality charging. And Rivian's not going to stop installing chargers. They're going to keep building more charging sites. So, it just adds another quality, charging network to the infrastructure that we so desperately need in this country. We need more high quality charging. So while, it's not the massive amount of chargers that Tesla has, it's still very much welcome because we just need quality charging. And I think, it makes sense. I don't think you can really have a closed network these days anymore. I'd like what Mercedes is doing, where they give Mercedes drivers some extra little perks, like, being able to reserve a spot on your way to a charger so you don't have to wait. But it's still an open network. Anybody with an EV and a credit card basically can use Mercedes network that they're building out. And opening the network is the way to access the billions and billions of dollars that are in the federal infrastructure law. And then the only way to get that money is to open your network to all EVs, right? So totally makes sense that Rivian would be doing this because it opens them up to being able to access that federal funding. And speaking of money, though, in South Carolina, Volkswagen is spending about $2 billion to build a brand new plant to build the electric Scout, which is super cool because I'm really excited about the Scout to see when it finally hits the market. I'm still a good ways away, obviously, at this point, but that should be an interesting one because, Volkswagen bringing back the Scout name, those people that love Scouts, right? They didn't make them for very long. I think it was only like 20 years, like from the 60s to the early 80s. So they weren't around forever, but they were super popular, super cool, kind of like the old Bronco, And so I think maybe, Volkswagen might have seen, because they own the Scout name now, that maybe the sort of rebooted Bronco from Ford was pretty popular. And I think they thought, well, but let's bring the Scout back, but as an EV, because, that's the way of the future, right? And I think an EV like that, especially in middle America, is going to help people in that part of the country may open up more to EVs. And, I think, again, I've said it before, smaller crossover type SUVs, EV versions of those is the way to go because that's what people in America want. And building that plant in South Carolina and building the Scouts in South Carolina means that they will most likely qualify for all the U.S. tax credits because they're going to be built here in the good old U.S. of A., which we love to see because that's American jobs, American manufacturing, and we love that, right? So I'm all for it. So bring on the Scout, baby. I can't wait for that one. That one's going to be pretty interesting when it finally hits the market. Again, it's probably several years away, but can't wait for that one. But speaking of American manufacturing, these Chinese EV makers, we've talked about this before, they are knocking on that door of the North American market, and they're going to try to get in. And eventually, I think they're going to break through. And the way they're doing it, of course, is, or one of the ways, is looking at building plants in Mexico. I think BYD's already announced that they're planning to do one. And I think there's a couple other manufacturers that are either talking about it or getting ready to make announcements that they're going to put plants in Mexico as well. Mexico has a huge auto manufacturing industry, and so there's a lot of experience there. So, it makes sense that they would do this, especially because it makes it easier to import or export cars from Mexico into the U.S. and into Canada, and that's what they're looking to do. Now, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, they're out there calling this an existential threat to U.S. automakers, which I don't know if it's existential, but it's definitely a threat. And, they want to fight this with higher tariffs and, protectionism and keeping them out of the U.S. But, to me, it's like, let the market decide. I say it all the time. Like, even with just EVs in general, if people want EVs, they'll buy them. If they don't, they won't. But here's the thing. People are buying them, and they're going to keep buying them. ICE cars' days are almost kind of numbered at this point. I mean, it's going to take a while. And the biggest thing is the charging infrastructure, and that's what 2024 is all about. This is the year of charging. And once the charging infrastructure is there and people feel comfortable that they can charge an EV, they'll be more comfortable with buying one. And what kind are they going to want? They're not going to want a piece of crap. They're going to want a high-quality, well-built EV full of tech. And that's what the Chinese automakers bring. And it's sad to say because I am all about America and American manufacturing. I mean, my whole life I've spent in the manufacturing world, in industrial distribution, and the American manufacturing is by far the best, pretty much all the way around, except when it comes to cars. And it's not even just the mechanical parts. I mean, if you look at like that Chevy Blazer EV, it's not the car itself that's garbage. It's the tech and just the terrible execution that GM is thrown out there. And then they wonder why nobody wants to buy the thing. And they had to stop selling it because it was so messed up. That's the kind of thing that's what they should be concentrating on. American manufacturers should say, bring it on, China. We're going to kick your ass because we're going to be better. Not, let's keep them out because we're afraid of them. It all comes down to who has the cars with the best quality at the best price, right? That's what it's going to come down to. So, trying to fight these Chinese EV makers is, I think, a waste of time. I think the way you keep them out or the way you keep them from taking over in the U.S. is just by building better stuff. That's really it. Like, build better cars, build better cars for a more reasonable price, and don't take CarPlay out of them. People want CarPlay. Tesla gets away with this again because their system is so good, but there's virtually no other automaker out there that has a system as good as Tesla's that they can get away with not having CarPlay or Android Auto. We want that stuff. So car makers, GM in particular, are you listening? Listen up. We want CarPlay. Don't get rid of it. That's a bad idea because to me, as I sit here right now, I wouldn't buy a GM product if they paid me because I just don't like GM products. That's just my personal opinion. But, when I see the quality of their vehicles, I've had a few. My son had a Chevy Equinox that was just the biggest piece of crap. Had to have an engine replaced. I've had bad experience with them. And that's not to say that everybody would. Obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would tell me I'm an idiot and that Chevys are great and all GM products are great. Whereas I'm going to sit here and say Polestars are great. And there's probably somebody who'll say Polestar sucks, Tesla's better, blah, blah, blah. So we can all have our opinions, right? But I think at the end of the day, what we all want is high quality at a decent price. I don't expect things to be cheap anymore. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see a car that's any good that's under 25 grand ever again. Those days are gone. It's like I had this conversation with my wife last year when she was looking at new cars. She was just like, oh my God, the prices. And I was like, that's what stuff costs now. The thing is can you find something that's any good for that price? And that's the trick, right? High quality. That's what we want. So the best way to keep these Chinese EV makers out of the market or at bay is to just make a better product. And even if they come here and they do find a way into our market, they won't overtake the U.S. car makers because they, if the quality's there. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But if they do get into the market and they bring high quality, high tech products, EVs into the U.S. market, and GM, Ford, Stellantis, they can't keep up, yeah, it's going to wipe them out. And, these Chinese EV makers don't fool around. When they come into a market, they're coming in to win. And we have got to get that back in this country, that willingness to do what it takes to win and to build the best stuff. I mean, we are, in the United States is a manufacturing powerhouse when we need to be and when we want to be. And, I think right now we just need an overhaul. I think people really need to take the Tesla lesson. All these legacy car makers really need to look at what Tesla's done. I mean, you think about the fact that just, 10 years ago, who was buying Teslas? The Model S was the only one out there, right? And it was very expensive. So it was kind of like people that could afford it, that didn't need to worry about charging because they could afford to put a charger in their house, or they won't, they maybe weren't going to go on a road trip with that. They were going to take their ICE car on their road trip. Fast forward 10 years, there's EVs everywhere. They're growing in popularity. They're all over the place. So, I mean, you look at what Tesla's done just in that short amount of time. They've gone from this little bitty sort of niche car maker to the most valuable car company in the world. So, and why is that? Because they made a high quality product that people wanted, that was at a good price. They built out a charging infrastructure that was there. So when the cars came, the owners had a place to charge them. It's really, that's all you got to do. I mean, just look at what Tesla's done. And I know people try to copy, but they try to copy in the wrong way. They don't try to do it the way Tesla did. They try to copy things, but do it the way they've always done it. To try to copy Tesla, but the old ways. It just doesn't make any sense. And, I think it's time that, these legacy car makers really get with the program and realize they have to pump out high quality, just high tech, best products. Look at what the Chinese are making and make it better. Let's win this thing, because we can and we should. And I guess that's, for today. I'll end there. America first, baby. That's what I want to see. And I want to see American EVs all over the road. So, because you know what I always say, EVs are awesome, and it's okay to be awesome. I'll see you next time. So it appears that Rivian is going to open their adventure network charging network